All right, before you want to pull out that ignition switch or work on anything in the instrument panel, you got to watch out. It's going to be a lot of live wires in there. So the first thing you do is disconnect the battery, which if you have worked on many British cars and read any of the manuals, that's the first thing you do on anything, just about. So the battery on the Silver Cloud is in the back and the right. You have a metal panel here that has these Zerk, or I forget what they're called, but they're 1/4 turn normally and they lift up. And this owner has a battery disconnect, but he needs a battery hold down. Very unsafe. You go over a bump, this could go sideways, go against the body, blow up, or catch on fire. So this is disconnected. Generally you can tell if the trunk light works and it goes out, the battery's disconnected. Same with the interior light. You can go and check that real easily by just looking in there. So it's out. I know it was working before. That's safe. So what we're going to do is we're going to take both of these instruments out and the face of that ignition switch. And first you got to pull this surround off. There are 4 screws holding it. There are 2 on the front, one there, and there should be 2 underneath. One here and one here.
That's the same for all clouds?
Pretty much, yes. Now I usually, to keep things in one place, I have these little cookie tins are real great for holding parts. The lids are great for holding nuts and bolts and all that. That way you stay in one place. And when I'm doing big work on a car, tearing engines apart and all that, I'll use those tins to put groups of nuts and bolts in it, so that it's easier to find them and also help you remember. Or, yeah, remember if you've got all the nuts and bolts for that particular assembly back on. Once you got the 4 screws off, you just gently pull it away at the bottom and then kind of work it off like that. And there you go. This has a nice little, oh, it's got some nice foam padding. That's nice. Helps with rattles. We put that in the back seat on the, somewhere, there you go.
Is the foam an aftermarket thing, or?
Yeah, it's not like that. I know they'll have a ring around these most of the time. I've never seen it the full amount there. And that's just to keep any extra light from shining through. So we'll start with the ignition switch. As you can see, there's a generator warning light here and a low fuel warning light. So those things just push in, and I pry them out, and you'll see it's just it's like a little bulb holder, and it's got a shield around it with a hole on the one side. It's always got to face towards this jewel, and it has an index to make sure you get it in the right place. So we'll pull those out of the way, both of those. There we go. There. And you got 2 big screws to hold the assembly to the main dash. Should be pretty much just slotted screws mostly. I don't think there are very many Phillips screws on this car. They're on the starter. They have a couple of big ones that hold the field windings on. So this has a big harness attached to it. You want to be gentle when you pull it out. It'll only come so far, but they do give you room to get it out, as you can see. Of course, this one hasn't been apart recently, so I'll have to use pliers on those thumb screws. Aren't these cute? All right. As I showed you on that other one, this should slide off, but of course this has been on there a long time. You can see the dust that's built up on the top side and is not on the bottom side. So I don't want to scratch anything else in here. I got everything off. We'll wait a second while Willie's coming here. Now these little faces also can be refinished. They have some nice lettering. This is Silver Cloud 1 with factory air. It has the cooling switch in the center, which is kind of rare. You don't see too many of those. Thank you. Here's what we're gonna do, we're gonna put it under these so I don't damage those and I can get serious. See? That's all it took. There we go. Now there's all the wires I was talking about. Now if you wanted to take the whole thing apart, you can do it. But I recommend, even though it does have the nice coloring and the wiring diagrams have great color schemes, I take a little piece of tape and number them all. And if you look on these, I don't have a flashlight, but every one of these terminals has a number stamped on it. We can look at that other one when we get this thing out. So you can just put little numbers on the wires that match these, the ignition switch. So now we're going to pull off these funny long studs with the threads and the non-threads. These ignition switches are pretty bulletproof because they are so heavy duty. They do develop some problems though that I have discovered over the years. They have a set of contacts for the ignition. They've got, because when you turn the ignition to the first position, it should light up all the accessories and the engine ignition system. And then you take it to the next step with the key and you crank it. It has another set of contacts, but the first contacts will get worn and kind of overheated over years, and they won't make very good contact. So what'll happen is you'll find that you'll have intermittent problems because you're getting a lower voltage supply through that contact, and the first or the easiest symptom to find is if you drive the car for a while, the ignition switch or the key will get warm because it's attached to that. It's pretty funny if you got intermittent problems, and you can take the key when you're driving, just ever so slightly wiggle it, cause problems. So then you have to either replace those contacts or clean them up and work on them a little bit to make them good and secure when they make contact. But like I said, they're pretty bulletproof. They're good for much more durable than most other ignition switches. So now we've got all the washers, all the studs are loose, so now we've got to do some more hammering. Now actually what you can do with this, once you get this here, is you can take this sleeve and slide it back, and it's out of your way. There we go. They get a little stubborn. I'm sure this has never been apart. So it is a 1958. So it is 55 years old.
Ronny, are the Cloud 2 and 3 dashboards similar?
Yes.
Take apart?
Very similar. The 2s and 3s, they don't have this all-in-one cluster. They have a separate clock, and they have these just without the clock in the center. That's the biggest difference. As you can see, I'm hitting this, but I'm doing it as gently as possible so that I don't damage anything up here. So don't start wailing on this thing if you're doing this yourself, because you will cause yourself grief and money. It's starting to move. You can see it's starting to move now, so. Oh, see that stuff is very brittle. This will not affect anything so long as you don't take bigger chunks out.
That's the Bakelite?
Yeah, that's the Bakelite, and it's tight in here. It's really tight. Always make sure you have all the nuts and screws off, which I already did that. This one is really tight. Ah. So, reconfirm there's only 3 bolts. The damage, I'm going to bring some light into this. There's your damage. It's just stuff, it's superficial on the outside. It's not going to affect anything. If you were to break this chunk here where there's a post on it, obviously you'd have to replace it. This will not need to be replaced. It's superficial. Everything is still intact. It's important. So that's the way. That's a hard one. And as you can see, it's an interesting little thing. If you ever need to change your keys, is this messing you up? This is the ignition lock part. This comes off, and it can be rekeyed. It's real simple.